Hey y'all, this is episode number 37. We're back. Gonna try to get on a more normal recording schedule, so thank you for your patience. Really appreciate it. If you're liking what you're hearing so far, please subscribe, rate, and review the show, and share with anybody that you think might be interested in listening to this stuff. If you're in the Austin area and you're looking to have your TV mounted on the wall, your sound system upgraded, anything to do with your entertainment system at all, go and check out Bat City TV. Let them know the Sovereign Individual podcast sent you, and they'll hook you up with a discount. And thank you once again to Flavor Aid for creating the intro music you are about to hear. Their EP, All My Life, is available on Spotify and wherever you listen to music. So check them out, give them a like and a follow, and please enjoy this episode. What's up, y'all? This is the Sovereign Individual Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Guerra. Thank you so much for joining me once again. It's been a little while since the last solo episode. I've had, it gets busy. What can I say? I've started working out too, trying to get my fat ass back in shape. So those workouts have been predominantly all in the evening. For the most part, so usually by the time I get home from that, I'm exhausted and I need to shower and work stuff. So I'm trying to find a good time to do recording. I know that the weekends offer ample time for recording, but I also love my football, so it doesn't always work out that way. I'm gonna find some way to do this during football season so I can still do at least one episode a week. So we'll see what I figure out. Probably record another one tomorrow, which would be Saturday. Hopefully, we'll see. No promises. But I said I was going to come back to this. I wanted to come back to this. And it came back into the news this week. So what better time to go over the Epstein case than in the same week where an interview occurred on Wednesday in which a medical examiner said that there was evidence of homicide that needs to be investigated. So, let's go over this. I don't think this is going to be an incredibly long episode. Like I said, I already did the episode when he first died about how much it stunk, how this was ridiculous, how nobody believed it was a suicide except for, a few choice people. I guess there still are some people out there that don't believe it was a homicide, that believe he actually killed himself. I've got some awesome beachfront property in Austin, Texas to sell you if you're one of those people. But anyway, so let's just go over a few of the details again in this case. Why this case stinks so much. Why his death. I'm just going to refer to it as his death because it was not a suicide. Why it all stinks so much. And I got to give a shout out and props to my boy Brandon Strain for pointing this out on Twitter back when this all first went down. And it is the flat tire principle that you can use on a situation like this. And basically goes, flat tires are uncommon, but they happen. Almost everybody has probably had a flat tire at some point in their life, or been around a flat tire. Maybe you weren't the driver, but you were in the car when a flat tire happened. Something like that. Maybe you used it as an excuse for why you were late to work. Whatever. It happens. You can get a flat tire. Do you ever get more than one flat tire at once? 2 flat tires at once? 3, 4? If that's the case, your tires got slashed. Because it's never going to happen otherwise. So that's the principle that we're going to be applying here. That if you have multiple flat tires, there's something else going on here. So let's just go over the details of the death one more time. So Epstein was taken off of suicide watch the day that he killed himself, quote unquote, the day of his death. He had a quote unquote suicide attempt 3 weeks prior to that. He was found to be mentally fit to no longer be on suicide watch Again, when you're on suicide watch, you're in a room that you can't possibly kill yourself in, and you're under constant supervision. Now, granted, this is also a high security prison. This is where they kept El Chapo during his trial. So they're used to these kinds of individuals being housed here. And they have their procedures to make sure. I mean, individuals like that, like a guy like El Chapo, it's a high suicide risk. Although he tends to escape from so many, so he's probably a lower risk than most. So he's taken off suicide watch, even though the suicide attempt was 3 weeks prior. And he's assigned to a cell, and he has a cellmate. And that cell, has a small glass window with a small circle in it, and then, just the normal beds. So I'm gonna say, being taken off of suicide watch, this particular person, in this high profile of a case, what he knows, what he can expose, the elite individuals that he would be able to bring down with him, being taken off of a suicide watch when he quote unquote attempted it, is insane. That's a flat tire in and of itself. If he even attempted, he should not be taken off of it until trial. This is too high profile of a thing. There's no way that you could allow this guy, if he showed any hint of being suicidal, there's no way that you can take him off of suicide watch. So I'm going to say that's flat tire number one. He's assigned a cellmate when he gets moved out of suicide watch. And that cellmate was transferred out of the cell a few hours before the death of Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I don't know that I can necessarily assign that flat tire number two. Prison inmates get transferred semi-frequently, I would imagine. I don't know firsthand. Seems kind of odd it would have occurred at night. I don't know what the procedure is for that. So I'm going to go ahead and not give that a full-on flat tire number two. But it's very odd. And again, as these things continue to build, it only gets more and more strange. So his cellmate's taken out a few hours beforehand. The guards on duty are supposed to check on Mr. Epstein every 30 minutes. Both guards, quote unquote, fall asleep and then falsify records to say that they had actually been doing the checks that they were supposed to. Again, so this is going to be another flat tire thing. Okay, maybe one guard can fall asleep, but two, in this prison, this high security, highly important cases, this is again where they held El Chapo. And of course, as soon as this happens, there's the reports that come out of, they're working overtime, they're understaffed, they're overworked, and blah 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 blah. None of these things that were problems when El Chapo was there, who is an insane risk for escape. Need I remind you how many prisons that he's escaped out of? So this wasn't a problem when El Chapo was there, and he could have easily escaped. Because if you have two guards falling asleep, El Chapo could have been gone. If that's what was going on. So it's just funny how this is now a problem when Epstein, quote unquote, killed himself because the guards were too tired and too overworked. But when El Chapo's there, there's no escape attempt or anything like that. If this was the type of ineptitude that was going on, El Chapo surely could have gotten out of the MCC. So both guards, quote unquote, fell asleep. I think they both fell asleep with their heads on the stacks of cash that they got paid to allow Epstein to be murdered while they were there, or maybe they committed it themselves. Who knows? I'm not willing to to throw them under the bus to say they actually committed the act, but I'm sure they got nice little paydays to quote unquote fall asleep. Video footage does not exist. Flat tire number 3. Again, this is where they held El Chapo. I can't say that enough. This is a high security, highly publicized. All the cases that are going on here, all the people being held here, they're going to be in highly publicized cases. There's video cameras all over the place. And so again, when this comes out, they're saying, oh, well, we don't know if the problems with the video camera are related to just this night, or if this is a reoccurring problem that we're just now becoming aware of because, we're trying to look at this camera now that Epstein has died, and, we didn't notice that there was the recording issue beforehand. Flat tire number 3. That is ridiculous. And again, I could give you one of these things happening on their own. I could maybe give that to you. Because again, we're talking about the government here. Y'all know how I feel about the government. You know how inept the government is at almost everything it does. So it's always dangerous to apply, criminal or evil intentions or bad intentions when ineptitude is easily easily the culprit, just as is just as easily the culprit in a case like this. So you take any of these one things alone. Yeah, I could see a camera that's malfunctioning that nobody has noticed because nobody is checking on it because it's the government and it's ineptitude. I could see one guard falling asleep because they're overworked and blah, 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 blah. I could see, taking a guy off of a suicide watch, even though he probably shouldn't be. I could see his cellmate being transferred out of there a few hours before he kills himself. I could see all those individually. But again, we're stacking these up on top of each other. They're like Legos. We're making a Lego tower of bullshit that's going on in this case in regards to his quote-unquote suicide. And then we get to the last part, and this is the part that came up as part of the interview on Wednesday. Broken bones in his neck. Now, if we're to believe what we're told, Jeffrey Epstein, who's a 6-foot-tall man, hung himself with bed sheets by basically kneeling and hanging himself from the bed. Now, we're going to talk about Michael Baden, who did the interview that kind of sparked all this. He's saying in his 50 years as a medical doctor, he's never seen broken bones in the neck like this in a suicide. He said these types of injuries occur with a homicidal strangling. But you don't even need to be a medical doctor with decades of experience to talk about something like this. Just think in your head the amount of force that you would have to generate in order to break bones in your neck from hanging. It's a fairly significant amount of force that you would need. Definitely more than you could get from falling off of a bunk bed and having to kneel because you're 6 feet tall and you'll touch the ground. So that's going to be flat tire number, what is that even? Is that 4? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So we've got a full-blown, all 4 tires of the car are flat at this point. So let's get into this real quick. Again, there's not a whole lot left to go over at this point. Again, I talked about this in the episode when he died. I think most of people kind of smell bullshit and kind of are calling it on this. No, I don't think most people are buying this official story. He's too powerful of a person. He knows too many powerful people. And that's not even getting into like the details of Jeffrey Epstein himself and how he may have been, an agent of, the state. He may have been used by intelligence. He had the Saudi passport with a different name on it. We had, what's his name? He was the prosecutor down in Florida. He had to recuse himself. He was the secretary of was it labor or whatever? I can't remember his name at the moment. It was in the last episode. He was saying he was told to drop the prosecution because Epstein is important to intelligence. So this isn't even getting into who Epstein was and why it's not only the powerful people that were banging children on his island that might want him dead, but why the government wants him dead as well. The state wants him dead. So Michael Baden goes on Fox on Wednesday and does an interview and says, what I've seen, my conclusion is that this needs to be investigated for homicidal strangling. And he's not even full blown saying that it was a homicide. He's just saying these injuries would lead one to believe that, and there should be an investigation into whether or not that occurred, or if this truly was a suicide, which again, I don't think anybody, for the most part, really buys. Now, the interesting thing about Michael Baden, and the thing that's kind of weird about all of this coming back up at this particular time, which kind of makes you wonder what it is that's kind of going on here. Again, like I was saying, I don't think, to the shock of no one when these stories broke and when this interview occurred, everybody's just like, yeah, we knew that. Everybody knew that Epstein didn't kill himself. We knew that the second that he died. But Michael Baden himself has kind of a sordid history when it comes to this. He's sort of he's like a hired gun for these types of autopsy, death report type things. He's been used by the CIA and the FBI to kind of cover up different deaths that have occurred with them. He's also been hired by Alan Dershowitz in the past, and if you will remember, Alan Dershowitz was one of the high-end individuals, highbrow individuals that was implicated in the initial part of all of this. So it's just kind of interesting that this is brought forward. Now there's arguments again about whether or not he committed suicide or whether he was murdered, and I can't help but notice we're not talking about the accomplices. We're not talking about what occurred. We're not talking about where the hell is Ghislaine Maxwell, Ghislaine, however the hell you say her name. Where is she? She's eating In-N-Out down in Southern California, but we haven't seen her since. Where is she? She was the one procuring all these poor girls. She was the madame or whatever they referred to her as. She was highly implicit in all of this, and she's fallen off the face of the earth. We're not talking about any of this stuff. They've got people, the media, the corporate media has people on their shows arguing about whether or not it was a suicide. We know it wasn't a suicide. We know. That's not what the argument's about. The fact of the matter is not a single one of the accomplices has been made to answer for any of this. They haven't been made to answer for their relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. They haven't been made to answer for how many times they flew on the Lolita Express. They haven't been made to answer about what occurred at that island, even though we all pretty much know. Nobody's been made to answer about if anybody knows why the hell he had a dentist chair in his bathroom. Nobody's been made to answer for any of that. Alan Dershowitz is not. Bill Clinton is not. Donald Trump is not. Prince Charles or Prince Edward, whichever one it was, has not been made to answer. And they've got us arguing. They've got not even us. They've got people on their shows in the corporate media arguing over whether or not it was a suicide. They think that we will forget. And God bless the internet and God bless memes, because it is not allowing people to forget. Every single day I log on to Twitter or I log on to Instagram and I see a meme. And one of my favorite ones has been, they've taken, there's the whole meme of introducing you to a really, cool or super interesting fact and just a short little tidbit. And then, they'll throw in, and Epstein didn't kill himself. There was one the other day, there's this particular rock in Saudi Arabia that looks as if it was cut perfectly straight with a laser. It's been around for, a couple millennia at this point, or at least it's been known about. And so, it's a meme talking about that. And then at the very end it says, and Epstein didn't kill himself. So thankfully the internet is not letting this die. But we need to move past the Epstein didn't kill himself. We know that Epstein didn't kill himself. What we need to be moving into is making the people who were complicit with what he was doing, who were participating in what he was doing, answer for their crimes. And unfortunately, I don't think we're ever going to get that. They're sure as shit not interested in bringing Ghislaine, however you pronounce her name. They're not interested in bringing her in and questioning her. They probably got her hidden in a CIA safe house. Because again, there's strong evidence that Epstein was an agent of the state. And we talked about in the last episode, the CIA's use of sexual blackmail and whether or not, Epstein was providing these pictures and photos of high, important, powerful people with underage girls in order to be able to blackmail them to do what they want. Who knows? But we're not seeing any of that. And so when something like this happens, there's often times where people are taken aback or just kind of weirded out by, my being an anarchist and not believing in this system, not believing in government, not believing in the validity of the state or any of this stuff. And when something like this happens, I feel like, how can you be a sane individual, see this, see how comfortable the ruling elite are in this system they've created, in this system they control, in this entity of the state and what it represents and the power that it represents and how they're able to manipulate it and use it to the point where they feel completely comfortable killing this man in front of all of us. In front of all of us United States citizens and citizens of the world. They feel completely comfortable killing him in front of us, not even really attempting to hide it, having flat tire after flat tire after flat tire in the lead up to his death. And they know that they're not going to face any consequences for it. And I'm sitting here and I wonder how a sane person could think there's any validity or any reason to believe in this system when we've got the ruling class is made up predominantly of pedophile, sex fiend, murderers, and we're supposed to just be okay with this power that we've given them. We're supposed to just accept the fact that this is the way it is. That we need government for whatever reason, and that there's not a better way. There's not a better path forward. That we should allow these individuals to continue to wield the monopoly of violence and the use of force and be able to enact laws and affect our individual lives and be able to say that something is legal or not legal, and then be able to come with guns and throw you in a cage if you disobey, and then if you refuse to go in the cage to shoot and kill you. I don't know. It's hard for me to imagine how you could see a situation like this and not just look at the entire system, look at the entirety of this entity called the state, and just say, why do we need this? I can't believe in this anymore. I don't see the validity in this anymore. But that's just me. That's somebody who doesn't see the validity in it. Anyway, and then just lastly, real quick aside, I'd like to give a preemptive rest in peace to Trevor Noah. He had Hillary and Chelsea Clinton on his show, and the very first thing he asked Hillary was, how did you kill Jeffrey Epstein? So we know that there's probably an impending suicide for Trevor Noah, because we know how the Clintons like to operate. Allegedly, of course. But as I talked about the last time around, the Arcan side, Clinton body count, all those things that were trending during Epstein's death, worth looking into if you have some spare time. And again, as with the details of all this, and as I like to say whenever I'm doing episodes like this, don't just take my word for it. I promise I'm never going to lie to you. I'm never going to intentionally mislead anybody. I'm never going to say anything in this podcast to where I know it's false and I say it anyway. I will be wrong from time to time. I will make mistakes. I will own up to them. But I'm never going to intentionally lie or mislead you. But I don't want you to just take my word for it either. Look it up for yourself. Go research it. Search on DuckDuckGo or Google if you still want to use that. But seek this information out for yourself as well. There's a lot of great independent journalists who are doing a ton of great work when it comes to this stuff. Whitney Webb had done she was doing a whole expose on Jeffrey Epstein, the person, before any of this occurred. So she has some great articles with insight into who he was and why the idea that he may have been an agent of the state has a lot of credence to it. So, seek out people like that. Again, there's awesome independent journalists doing awesome work out there. But look for yourself. Don't just take my word for it. So that's going to be all for this particular episode. Again, say it over and over again. Jeffrey Epstein did not kill himself. And I think it's pretty easy for most everybody to at least agree on that at this point in time. So, like I said, I'm going to try to record another episode tomorrow. We'll see how that goes. No promises, but I will do my best to. Got some other stuff I want to talk about for sure. And then I'm going to try to get on a normal schedule. And I've got a couple more conversations with interesting people coming up here on the books that we'll get going. So thank you once again for listening. You are a sovereign individual. So is every single one of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and all of his accomplices who have not been made to answer for the crimes that they did to those poor girls, those sovereign individual girls that were part of this and were tortured and were raped and were made as sex slaves in all of this. So let's not forget that. Let's not forget that justice still needs to come to those who were also involved in this and who weren't named Jeffrey Epstein. Thanks, y'all.